to the Route 77 podcast, brought to you by Route 77 Ministries, a ministry dedicated to supporting and uplifting singles in their faith journey. In today's episode, we're continuing our discussion on stereotypes of singleness in the church. This is the second part of a 2-episode series where we explore this topic. If you haven't listened to the first part, we highly recommend checking it out before diving into this episode. So let's get started as we unpack the misconceptions and learn how to support and celebrate the single members in the church community. There's one other stereotype that is faced by singles is that people assume that they're looking for a partner.
Yep.
So they're going to ask you all the time and they're going to set you up on dates and have a friend of a friend. And
I know this guy and he's really nice. You
Yeah.
guys should meet.
even if you say, even if you say, I'm not looking,
Yep.
they don't believe you.
No.
And so there's this idea that, or they assume that you must be gay or something like that if you're not actively pursuing marriage.
I think I had that experience with my parents. I think my dad thought at one point, because it could have been my mom, but I think that because I lacked any interest in dating, I think he thought I was gay at some point.
Because they're looking for some reason. Like people are looking for a reason why you don't fit this box they've put you in, that they want to put you in.
No.
If you look at the stereotypes, we talk about commitment phobic, immature, selfish, lonely, unhappy, unrealistic expectation, damaged or having baggage in that you're not or seeking a partner. They can't understand that people may be perfectly fine with commitment. They're perfectly mature and giving people, selfless people who are content and joyful. They maybe have a desire to get married, but have realistic expectations. They understand people are sinners and they're not going to be perfect. They're all going to be Jesus. Not anybody going to be Jesus. They may have damage or baggage, but they've been dealing with it. They have counseling. They're in a healthy place and they're choosing to not look for a partner, or they may be looking for a partner, and yet they can still be a perfectly whole, contributing member to the church and society
As a single person.
And yet there's this constant bombardment of negatives. I don't know if our stereotypes positive. I guess they technically could be, but
You must be with somebody. You cannot be alone anymore.
there's something wrong with you if you're not looking.
Yeah.
And so like when we look at how they can apply specifically sometimes to genders, there's an idea that if you are, especially if you're single, never married, and a guy, as you get older, there's this idea that one, that you might be same-sex attracted, and that's why you're not married or dating or whatnot. And two, that you're a pedophile. So it becomes more difficult for a middle-aged, single, never married man to engage in the church, especially with youth. Like they enjoy teaching youth like that. Like you can have the exact same thing as a woman and not be people aren't worried about you. But there's this idea that there's something wrong with you. You must be a sexual deviant if you've never been married as you get older as a guy. That is a thing, especially in the church. It's because there has been situations where that has happened.
Yeah.
But again, stereotype doesn't
look at the Catholic Church with the
and this happens in the Protestant church too. There's people all over. They could be married, they could be not married. It's nothing to do with their relationship status or their sexuality
or their preferences
or their sexual expression. Just because they choose to be celibate doesn't mean that they're pornographers or pedophiles or whatnot,
or perverts or whatever.
Yeah. So it tends to be, that one tends to be skewed towards the male side of things,
which is very sad.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, David, if we're giving you sad news.
Okay.
And
Good thing you know us. We know you, and we know
we know you're nothing like that.
You're nothing like that.
But for women, there's this idea that if you're single, never married, especially, that you are, here we go, we talked about this, okay, where we must be desperate to get married. Like you have to be you must be so desperate as a woman to get married. So there's this desperation. And yes, I had a desperation in my 20s because I thought that's what I had to do is get married. But whenever you actually become content in your singleness, you don't have a desperation.
You don't want to become a spinster.
This is where it's fused against the women. A guy can be a bachelor and that's fine. But a woman is never called a bachelorette except when it's in
Stupid show.
or it's related to marriage. Like you have a bachelorette party. Oh, but it's in relation to the marriage. It's not actually that there. So a bachelor is fine. A spinster is a horrible word.
Because you know what comes to mind when you think of a spinster? It's this lady, she's got her hair way up in a bun.
Hold so far back that she's got hawkish features and like
and
telling everybody off. And
yep. And she's got a really horrible,
I know. Yes.
There's
That's the spinster. So there's definitely a stereotype there. So that's what people assume you must be.
And you're a librarian.
Or you're a librarian, yeah. With the glasses on the end of your nose.
If you look at almost every stereotype you described has some visual component that's the core of the idea.
Yes.
The stereotype is almost a 100% visual.
Yep. They also believe that women who aren't married are too picky or have unrealistic expectations. Like, that's specific to the women.
Yeah.
Like that is, So if
I was told that. Maybe you're just being too picky.
Yes, I was told that too. And you're just
because there are single men in the church. They're 25 or more years older than me.
Or I'm not attracted to them. Or I grew
up 25 years younger than me. I'm not a cougar.
Right now. Another stereotype. But what if you grew up with the people? It's like they're siblings to you almost. That's how you feel. Like you're not you. That's the people you grew up with, or that's like your little brothers or your big brothers or sisters or whatever. But for women, it's like you're too picky. You must be desperate, and you're destined to be a spinster
for the rest of
your life. And being a spinster is like the worst thing a woman could ever be.
Yeah.
I don't know. Being barren might be the next one, or before that.
I think if a woman is barren, like if she's married and
cannot have children,
I think they're a little bit more forgiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But so.
Well, in modern societies, yeah, I feel like that. But if you look at like the medieval ages and then up maybe until the 19th and maybe 20th centuries, I feel like it was I feel like those people were either exiled or shunned. Women who were bad.
Thankfully, we don't live in that era.
Yeah.
Yep. But like nowadays, we understand that infertility, whether it's due to pollution or chemicals or whatever, genetics is becoming more and more. It's becoming more and more. Infertility is becoming much more greater issue. Losing your pregnancy, a lot of women, they may get pregnant once and can never get pregnant again. And there's all sorts of other kind of issues that happen in a female's body or in a guy's body. If you get one of those childhood measles or mumps or something in your just before you hit, or just if you're in that puberty area, that could make you infertile. Yeah. So I think nowadays, if a couple are infertile,
but there's almost an expectation to deal with it somehow.
Yeah.
You can still adopt. You can still go for IVF. You can still do this. Like people couch it by saying, don't worry, you can still have children.
Yeah.
Instead of maybe they have decided to adopt or go another route. We want to have a podcast about that and single people because that's an issue. But they're unable to have children naturally, and that they've decided not to have children, and they're okay with that. So instead of like going, don't worry, it's like when people said, don't worry, I had a friend get married at 40 and she had her first baby at 45. So you're still time for you. Somehow that's supposed to make me feel better. Like anyway. But there's this thing like, don't worry. Yeah. Don't worry.
Steve Irwin's daughter, what's her name?
Bindi.
She has lately come out about her with endometriosis. And I'm hearing a lot of women are having this problem. And what endometriosis does is it actually can prevent you from ever becoming pregnant. It's extremely painful. And I have a friend who is struggling with that. And I have another friend who struggled with that. The other one was able to have 2 children. This one has not been able to hold on to a pregnancy. So when
going through that like multiple times, it takes a toll.
It does. And if I myself have lost a baby before it could be born, and I can tell you the pain when you so want to have a child and you lose that child. So when you go on to that person saying it'll happen, you got to let that couple go. You got to let them deal with their own issues about whether or not they can have, and deal with it in themselves and with their families, because the more you pressure them, the harder it's going to be on them.
So yeah, change your wording when you talk to people. Don't ask, hey, are you in a relationship? Are you dating? Do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a girlfriend? Are you getting married? When are you getting married? When are you engaged? When are you getting engaged? When are you going to have babies? Are you going to have babies now? How about now? Now? Oh, don't worry. You can have them.
Stop saying that.
Just stop. You can ask a person, how are things going? Anything exciting? What's new? And if there is a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a baby, or whatever, they will come and talk to you. They will put that in, no problem, because that's exciting in their life and they want to talk about it.
Yep.
Then you can go on with the conversation.
Yep.
Don't just you come in and then you're going, so you dating yet?
Yeah.
And instantly that will shut the person down.
Yep. And it's also being nosy.
It is. And it's like you're making assumptions. That's what they want. And if they don't want that, then they feel like there's something wrong with them.
Yep.
And there's like a whole thing. Just change how you talk to people instead of being like, hey, is so-and-so dating or whatever. It's like, what's new with their life? Like maybe they felt God calling them to go into school doing this and then going to do that job. And that's what they're excited about.
Yep.
Oh, I'm writing a book, or I'm gone back for my master's, or I'm going to do mission work, or I'm going to take this job. And just ask that way. You can still have perfectly good conversations and connect with people. And then you can, once they open the door on whatever it is that is going on with their life, then you can follow that road.
Yep.
And that's just a much healthier way to talk to people.
Yep. 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 I see you've got on here about divorce.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. There's stereotypes that are specific to those who are divorced. One is that they may be damaged goods. We talked about that in general. Sometimes people think that those who are divorced must be damaged in some way, and that way they're not worthwhile to remarry.
Yeah.
Or that there's something wrong with them.
Why on earth there must be something wrong with them if they got divorced.
Yeah, especially if they're not looking to remarry.
Yes. Yeah.
If they've chosen, at least for the time, to remain single, and they're like, well, there must be something wrong with them. No wonder that person left that one or whatever. They just want to be alone. Two is that they have commitment issues. Again, we talked about that. And yeah, maybe there's an issue there. Maybe there was they got pushed into a commitment because they were told they had commitment issues. And then they were like, I wasn't ready for this relationship or whatnot. So there's assumption they have commitment issues, like we talked about. Assumption that there must be something wrong with them as a partner or as a parent. That's why they're divorced. There's some deficiency in them because that's why they're divorced. Oh. And so then again, we're looking for a reason why they're single instead we think that they might be bitter or angry. Sometimes divorces are those things.
Yep.
And they do create those things, and they can create resentments.
And the funny thing is that when people look at the divorced person, do you also realize, especially in the church, I'm not talking about people outside of the church. I'm talking about people inside the church, because we have different rules inside the church than we do for people outside the church. If you divorce for anything other than adultery, you really are not to get remarried.
Yeah. If you're the one at fault, essentially, is what the Bible essentially says. Although there's people who do get remarried, and that's between them and God. And if they feel like they've done something, then I saw one pastor say, if you have got remarried and you realize that maybe you shouldn't have, it says repent to God and stay married. Yeah. Because you've made that commitment. So that's just how we think about that.
Yeah. No, even still, there's always forgiveness.
Yeah. There's forgiveness, redemption.
Yeah.
Grace.
Yeah.
Samaritan woman.
Yeah. Samaritan woman. Multiple husbands.
That woman that got thrown to Jesus with everybody's, when he says the first person who has sinned can throw
the first person with no sin. The person with no sin can throw the first stone. That's when they had the adulterous woman, but they didn't bring the man.
Yes.
Yeah. There was a lot of interesting stuff in the Bible about that. There's an assumption that divorced women trying to remarry or whatever are gold diggers. They're looking for a payout, or they're looking for I don't know, something but the one that's going to take care of them.
Yeah, you were good enough, so I'm going to find myself a sugar daddy.
Yeah, that's the word. What I say, yeah, going to be sugar daddy. That's what they're there for. That's what their whole purpose is. That's why they're divorced, because they weren't happy with the financial.
When I was a teenager, my dad always told me, he says, never get married for love. Get married for money. Find yourself a guy who's 90 some odd years old, who's got billions of dollars, and marry him.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad.
Sure. Ask me how that worked out for me.
And sometimes there's a stereotype that men who are divorced are deadbeat dads or abusive or something. And
so that's the thing. When it comes to marriage, what happens in the home, we don't know.
No.
We don't know what went on with the couple. And
so I'd say like a lot of the time, there's things going on both sides.
Yeah.
Now, there are times when there's abuse going, and it can be a man abusing a woman or a woman abusing a man. It goes both ways.
Yep. Neither should be ashamed.
No, you are completely allowed to get out of that relationship that's abusive, but you don't. But I'm going to say, like, a lot of divorces, there's some issues going on both sides.
Yeah.
There's some stubbornness, there's some hardness of heart, there's things that are going on that they don't want to deal with on both sides. So to assume one thing based on their gender and relationship status is just not helpful.
No. Yeah, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, and it's not up to us to assume the reason for their divorce or the reason for why they want to remarry or not. Yeah, exactly.
Because it just depends on the person, right?
Yeah. But I know that divorced people are looked down upon in the church.
Yeah. They failed.
They failed.
Yeah. That's what there's a stereotype that there's a failure on their part. They got to go to the next level. They're like their Mario. They got to their big Mario, and then they got hit by a bad guy, and they went back to little Mario. That's my.
That's a very sad picture.
That's my.
Is that your
metaphor?
Is that your metaphor? That's a very sad.
That's my picture.
Little
Mario. I no longer have my big Mario status.
Yeah.
I want my mushroom.
Yeah. And as a church community, we should not be ostracizing the people who end up having to divorce because we don't know. And I'm sure that
there's sometimes things that the church leadership needs to deal with, and that's up to them to deal with it. And the end.
Yeah.
We are not, if you're not in the church leadership, you're not a part of that.
Yep. If you're not called upon to be a part of the conversation, then you should not be a part of that conversation.
You'll know what you're supposed to know.
As a church community, what you should be doing is you should be praying for them. Yeah.
There's this verse. This is my life verse. And people find it odd. And I heard it on
Adventures in Odyssey.
Yes, thank you. Adventures in Odyssey. I learned it from there.
Know you.
Yes. So it's make it your ambition to lead a quiet life, to mind your own business, and to work with your hands, just as I have told you. And that one is a very good reminder about gossip and what you should be doing.
I have one.
Yes.
But it's from Bambi. Thumper. And if you don't know it, you've never watched Bambi. It's if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yep. That's just, a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
And I just like that verse. And
it's a good
verse that it just reminds you, it's make it your mission to lead a quiet life. Because how many people are like, oh, if only I can get famous doing this, everything will be good. And you're just like, wait, God says completely the opposite, lead a quiet life. Yep. That's why he says pray in the secret of your own home. Yep. Don't pray as the Pharisees do out in the mud. You're trying to develop like an unassuming, quiet life where like people can walk by you and not even know that you're there, in a sense. Not like you're trying like self-deprecation where you're trying to hide, but just that you've got this strength that you're going through and with your spiritual life, but that it's not on display.
And a lot of times when it comes to divorced couples, it's not just the couple. A lot of times there's kids involved.
And so that's one thing I really appreciated about my old church, Northview. They actually had a divorce care program and a divorce care for kids program. Because
that's a good program.
So I really like that because they knew that people who are divorced needed specific care. They knew the children needed specific care too. And so they created that for them. And I thought that's a very good thing to do.
Yeah. We have to show our love, but still show the truth and to be kind, because they say that when you divorce, it's worse than had the person died because that person is still alive. So you still see that person.
It is. That's what it's like. That's what I found with my exes. And I've pretty much gotten over it because I don't think about it pretty much anymore, except in eye rolling situations. Yes, I get a lot of eye rolling when it comes to my ex. But there's always this idea that they're still out there.
Yeah.
Like all those things that you wished could have been come true. Like it theoretically could, but it's not going to. But it's just like you have that. If they passed away, there's just no way.
Yeah, like with me.
Yeah.
Because I divorced my husband first, and then because of his cancer and stuff, and because I couldn't let go, I divorced him. But I couldn't let go that he could not accept me. What was wrong with me? But then he developed cancer, so I helped him through that, and then he passed away. And I realized there is such a huge difference between being divorced from somebody and having them die. Because when you're divorced from them, for some reason, there's still that little glimmer of hope.
Maybe.
But once they're dead, that's gone.
Yeah.
God, there's no going
You
back.
can't go back.
You can't go back.
There's
No.
people who have tried. That's disturbing.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there. That's really wrong. So
Is that a stereotype to say that they're crazy or they need some help?
they definitely, if you brought your deceased spouse to the taxidermist because
Or
you
your
want to sit,
mummified spouse in the bed. Yeah, that's definitely
those are really bad CSI episodes, aren't they?
yes. Disturbing.
Very disturbing. You had to go into the disturbed.
Yes, I do. I'm this very disturbed individual. How about you, David? Any comments on the divorce stereotype?
I can't really comment on any of them as the closest thing I've experienced divorce was my friends. And it's good that you guys are talking about it for those who go through it, but I don't find any relatable experience or to divorce or the stereotypes around it.
Okay. So let's talk about the stereotypes of widowed. There's usually ones that are specific to the younger people who are widowed and the older people who are widowed.
Yep. I was expected to get remarried right away.
Yeah.
But there was no.
It's funny. There's like a magic time period of being able to remarry, because I know there was this man that was a friend of my dad's, and his wife was killed in a car accident, and he was devastated, and he was injured as well, and so they had 3 children, and they lost their mom, and he lost his wife, and he was devastated. But God brought another woman into his life, and he was married 11 months later, and people were literally not going to his wedding because they were like, it's too soon. How could you do that? And it wasn't his plan. He hadn't planned to do this. It just came about from different things. He's in the farming community. She's in the farming community. It just connected around. And they've been married for a lot of years now, and they have children they adopted. And it's just, but there's this sort of magical time of mourning that you have to go through, and then it's acceptable. And yet once you've hit that, you've clicked over from mourning to available, and everybody's, so you're getting married now? How about now? Do you want to meet somebody? I have a friend of a friend. And
Sorry, I don't understand. I'm struggling to understand what they were so upset about. Were they upset about him loving someone else or him?
They figure that you should have a specific time of grieving, and usually they want you to grieve for a whole year, because a year you go through a lot of the firsts, right? So if your grief time is like not that long,
because he would have met her and then dated her, and then it wasn't like they just all happened on the 11 months. It would have happened before that, the relationship. But
So-
they felt it was inappropriate or disrespectful to his wife who had passed away.
now, when it comes to grief, there is no rule.
No.
Everybody grieves differently. And some people,
What does the Bible say? It says there's a time for grief.
Matthew 5:4. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
think that's exactly what Jesus and God did for that man.
Yeah, exactly.
and there's also that one in
It talks about
Ecclesiastes.
there's a time for mourning and there's a time for joy.
Yeah.
And there's
A time
no
to cry and
prescription,
stuff.
like length of time. I could be wrong, but I don't even recall a rule in the Old Testament. We've just gone through the Pentateuch, so we've been through all the rules, and I don't recall any other than they weren't supposed to touch dead body or they'd be unclean for a certain amount of time. There was no specific mourning period set.
I'm reading verses here, and it saddens me that people don't know the Holy Scripture, because you get Psalm 34:18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, saves those who are crushed in spirit. So people are saddened or see these things happen to other people, yet I don't think they quite understand exactly what God is capable of. And what he seems to have a directed focus on those who mourn, those who are crushed, those who are hurting.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the verse that you were looking for is in Ecclesiastes 3, a time for everything. For everything, there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to,
That verse could be used again
and a time
for the 1 year of grieving, though,
Yeah.
Monique.
a time to mourn and a time to dance. So,
Yep.
it's,
But it says a time. It doesn't say a specific time.
it doesn't say how long that time has to be. For some people, like my uncle who lost his wife of 50 years, trying to remember how long ago she passed away. He is still, to this
Yeah, there's
day,
people that
mourning her death.
Yeah.
And he will never marry anybody else. But even in our church, there was a mom who had 2 young babies, and her husband was killed in a very bad accident just up the road here. She's now remarried with more kids. And she didn't wait that long either.
Yeah.
The same with another couple. His children were older and she died. She had a heart condition. She died. She had the operation. She never woke up. And it was within that first year that he started dating another girl. And then they got married and had another child. And so to each person, it's different.
Yeah. And to expect people, especially to women who have children, there's this expectation, quick, get married. You need a man.
Yeah, you need a father for the
You
children.
need a father for the children, quick. And I'm like, that's really dangerous because you're pushing someone to grieve at a different timeline than they may be capable of. 2, you're telling them they're not capable.
Yeah.
When they're already feeling like probably incapable of things like without their spouse. And 3, you're telling them to put like on your list of what your husband should be, it should be father to your children, not husband to you.
Yeah.
And your children grow up and leave the house. That's the natural cycle of things. Your husband or wife should be with you
until one of
you passes away. That's desire anyway. So they're going to be with you longer. So don't just find someone who's going to be a good father. Like you want that. But if that's the only reason, then that usefulness of that spouse is going to leave soon. Because even as the children become teenagers and stuff, there's less parenting in a sense. Not you're always going to be parenting, you're always going to be a parent. But there's more, the person has more autonomy, responsibility, and eventually they grow up and leave.
And you might also ignore warning signals because you feel the pressure to marry somebody right away.
Yeah. And then there's like the other side of the coin that when it's like when you're older and you become a widow, then it's like, how dare you try to get married again? That's disgusting. Or that's weird. You're like 70 and you're getting married. It's like, again, is there a Bible verse that says anything about it? It just says, find a person who is a Christian. Not the end. It doesn't say anything about ages or anything. It just says Christian. That should be your list.
As long as they're not telling them to have babies.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but Sarah only happened once.
Yeah. The guy can always become a dad, but that's, again, a decision for you guys to make and to have a conversation. What it's like to be older and having babies.
Yeah. But if he's in his 80s and she's in her 80s,
they're probably not going to have children.
And they're not going to adopt. And just let them be.
Okay.
Yeah. Let them enjoy their...
And it's almost, there's this sort of taboo about them even dating. It's just almost like they magically were just not married and married. That would almost be better than the fact that they're thinking about grandparents dating. And it's just funny that there's this thing, this taboo almost. This is like my grandfather died when I was 13. And my grandmother died when I was 34. So she didn't get married again. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Between her husband passing away and her passing away. Like she was 93 when she passed away. So you could have a whole other lifetime with another person.
Yeah.
And it's just,
if that's something
they want or something God wants, it's not, there shouldn't be an expectation. Like just, again, ask them like, hey, what's new in your life? What's going on? Are you having a good time or what are your plans?
Do you want to come over for lunch?
And it opens up doors for conversations, and then you find out things. And instead of just assuming that a person is young must be looking to get remarried, or a person is older must not be thinking about marriage because that's gross or whatever. I don't think that, and I try not to really contemplate a lot of it, but that's in general. Regardless of the age,
there are certain things you just don't go down that road. Okay?
Yes.
Stay off that road.
Regardless of the age,
stay off that road. Stay in your own lane.
We know what happens. We don't have to contemplate it.
You don't have to imagine or think about it. Just let it go.
Exactly. David, anything more about the widows
or the widowers?
Or have we like completely
lost you?
No, same thing as last time. I have no experience or relatable information on this topic. I am not a widow.
It's just in shock at what we're saying.
Me being a widow, I can relate. When I first became a widow, it was one of the first things that came into my mind is I'm free. I am going to find somebody else. But everybody was in their 70s, so it wasn't going to work out for me because I was only in my 40s.
I'm in my 40s, I'm divorced. And almost first thing people say after they find, like I say, oh, I'm divorced now, they're like, oh, don't worry, there's time for you to get remarried. And you're like, wasn't really on my worry list.
The funniest thing and I'm sorry, she's a sweet lady, love her to pieces.
I know people who do this out of the goodness of their heart, and I have no ill feelings toward them.
Now that you've started singles ministry, God's going to bring you that perfect husband. And I just rolling my eyes because I'm like, really? He went like we would start this, and then all of a sudden he's going to. Now I'm going to give you a husband because that's
what you need.
And you just
and again, I'm not anti getting a husband, but I'm not pro. I'm not in a sense where I'm looking. I'm not looking. I'm not looking.
No, but that
I am very comfortable being single, and I'm happy if that's what God calls me for the rest of my life. But with God, you have definitely to be willing to be ready for your life change, because if you're not, that's when you get thrown for a loop. So never say never with God,
no, exactly.
because
It's
he likes
just
to
that
play with that word.
yeah, it's just that her saying that
Yeah.
when it's a singles ministry and you're already cursing her to get married. Not that it's a curse.
No, it's not a good, but then to be a married person leading a singles ministry is definitely a difficulty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but no, it can be done.
It can be done. Well,
But I think God would probably want us to have a little bit more time
within the ministry, yeah.
before taking you out of it. No, you're the leader.
Don't go to the dark side.
Cookies are on this side. Honest.
Stay on the single side. Yes. No, we have zero problems with people wanting to find marriage, or
No,
people. We have zero problem with that.
No.
We don't want to be like, oh, they're just anti-marriage, they're anti-dating.
no.
We are completely fine with it. We just want to push back a little bit on the feelings that go towards singles.
Yeah.
And again, we don't want to become like the pendulum and swing all the way to the other side, but we are going to come at it things from more of a singles perspective. So it'll seem like we're promoting singleness over marriage, and we'll say it over and over. We're not. Both are completely equal forms of living. They're both lanes on the road to heaven. Because we're a singles ministry, we're going to focus more on the single people.
Because it's just supposed to be a picture of the union with Christ.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
For the right reasons.
Good things for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Thing for the right reason. Riches and modesty.
There's that thing again.
Maybe they'll donate to us because we keep plugging them.
You keep saying.
You keep saying, listen to Adventures in Honesty.
Yep.
If you're listening, focus on the family. Could we at least have a podcast with you? We'll take that as a...
With wit? Oh, wait.
And Andre Stoika is the current wit. Maybe with Connie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because she's single.
As
far as I know.
She was, yeah.
She was. I haven't listened to the last couple, but she's been single, yeah. We should have maybe she'd like to come on and we could have a conversation with Connie. No, Eugene passed away. The character didn't, so kids, don't worry. I don't think the character did. The actor passed away. Yes.
I am heartbroken.
Yes. No more Eugene.
That's how long ago it's been since I actually listened.
Oh, he only passed away a few months ago.
Long. No way, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. My condolences to his family.
Yeah. Will Ryan. Awesome character. These characters I grew up with, I feel like they're part of my family. So every time an actor passes away, they're on the third Mr. Whitaker, and I'm heartbroken every time they have to replace the actor. So many people.
Yes, it's still a sad part of this life.
Yeah.
Death is still.
And the hardest part about media is that they seem that age forever, but in real life, they're getting older.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the stereotypes for various types of singles. So then we try to look a little bit more specifically how the church community can specifically deal with singles. We've touched on a lot of these things. We'll just review them. Singles as incomplete or less valuable. This is definitely, I would say, implicit. It's implied. It's not an explicit teaching. It's not that people come out and say this, but it's definitely the vibe you get when you're in the church. It is 100% the vibe you get. There's something wrong with you. You're not a complete person. You should be looking for marriage. If you're not, there's something wrong with you. That's definitely, I would say, the leading stereotype that I have felt in the church. And it affected me a lot. Yeah. Church, we got to stop this.
Yeah.
I'm shaking my finger at you. My pencil. I'm shaking my pencil at you.
Shaking your pencil.
Church. Yeah. And we have to realize, like we've talked about, the single person is a complete 100% person. They are a part of the body of Christ. We are accepted. God doesn't have any.
He doesn't make junk.
He doesn't make junk. He doesn't make replaceable parts on the church body. They're not deformed. They are fully formed, complete, valuable persons. Relationship status counts as nothing.
And you don't need to be afraid to interact with them.
No. We're not scary. I might be. We might be a little bit.
Yeah,
we're a little crazy. Yeah.
For introverts, when we get into a crowd, we go crazy.
Yeah, we're a little nuts. David can attest to that. He often stands quietly to the side while we go nuts. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Full agreement.
Yeah. The times we took him, like when we went to Korea.
Yes.
Sorry, David.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. We had so much fun though.
It was a bonding experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are a family forever from that.
Yeah, that's what made us a family, is that trip. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, and again, this one actually can be sometimes preached in churches. I don't say every church or many churches specifically preach this, but there's this idea that singleness is a curse or punishment. Like God is not happy with you. There's some sin in your life. There's something going on that needs fixing, or else you would be married. And I think there are some churches who do teach that. I would say not the mainstream, a small portion, but there also is this general like underlying current that it's like when the people came to Jesus and said, "This man is blind, who sinned, him or his parents?" It's just like, this person's unmarried. Who sinned, them or their spouse that they're supposed to have? Or there must be some sin going on or something if otherwise they would be married. God would fix this.
Yep. Yeah. We're not, we don't need to be fixed like that.
We're broken, but like everybody.
Out John 9:1-7, Jesus healed a blind man from birth. When asked who had sinned to cause this man's blindness, Jesus said, neither this man nor his parents sinned. But this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him.
Exactly. Yeah. And that can relate to anything, not just physical blindness.
Yes, exactly. And again, so we don't want to say singleness is like a deficiency
or a sin.
But even because you could say blindness is seen as like something that can be healed.
Yeah, no, I wasn't specifically.
No, but I'm just saying like there are specific ones.
David being visually impaired, he's not saying that.
No, but I'm just saying in general, as we're saying, we're not saying it's 100% like one to the other, because we're not saying singleness is somehow like a negative that God's gonna shine through. It's a part of life that God can shine through. It's not a negative thing.
Yeah, God can shine through anything, and whether you're
negative, positive, and anything in between.
Yep, exactly.
That the church community also perpetuates the idea that the single is lonely and unhappy. Poor singles. Let's start a singles ministry so we can fix it. Get them all married off.
Is that what we did?
Yeah, that's what we were trying not to do.
That's what we're trying not to.
That's why there's no talk of single in our title of our ministry. We did not want to portray that. There is that general idea that I saw one book. It said most people have singles ministries with the idea of putting themselves out of business. Get everybody married off, then you won't have any singles, and then you're fix the problem. No, they're not. Like they're like, oh, these poor single people, they must be so sad and lonely. Let's make them happy and not lonely.
We'll start a singles ministry where they can meet each other.
Yeah. I think there was this one sect where they just threw all the singles into a tent and they all had to come out with each other, and that's where they married. Something like that.
Oh my word!
I don't know. I
do not do that.
I'd have to Google that, but I'm just saying it almost brings to mind that if we just put them all in a room, connect up, and then we can put them in the marriage class, and everything's good. We can close down the single ministry. It's just it's just a crazy idea. I know people don't specifically think that, and yet that's how they act.
And I think that's what happened with a couple friends of ours who tried to start a singles ministry in our church.
Yeah.
And that's what they found out, is that it just turned into a meetup.
Yeah. And again, we're not against people meeting up, and that's probably might happen with some people. You're fine. Single people coming to a single place where there's other single people. That's fine. That's going to happen. But it's not the purpose. The purpose of our singles ministry and the purpose of singles ministries should be the development of single people. Yeah. So they're not just sad, lonely people that need to be fixed.
No, they just need a place to express themselves and be crazy.
And again, like we talked about selfish and immature, there's this idea in the church that it's the immature part in the church, I think. I think, remember what we listened to one podcast for the last episode about purity culture. And this one woman said she was actually congratulated when she got engaged because she was about to become the next level. And it was a quote unquote joke. Coming to the next level, like you've made it to the maturity side of things.
She went from a little mushroom to a big mushroom.
Yes, she was going to get her Mario mushroom, marriage mushroom. And it's just, there is this idea that somehow the singles, like I said with me, you just stay in the little kids group because you're not really an adult yet. So Christian peoples don't do that. Single adults are adults, and they come in various sizes, just like married ones. Some are selfish and immature, and other ones are not.
Yep.
That has nothing to do with relationship status. It is your own status. Personal growth and development. It has nothing to do with being single.
Nope.
That single people are not interested in commitment. That can be an idea that's in there. We talked about it before, about the commitment phobic, that especially when we talk about, the generation now, like they just don't seem to want to, because they're not marrying when they're 20. Like maybe they choose to wait until, like we said, that we've seen that it's been more like late 20s, early 30s. And then they're like, oh, they just don't want to commit. But like we said, they've seen a generation of people, their parents getting divorced. They see that maybe they don't want to rush into we have opportunities more now to go and do things and experience life. So they choose to do that first.
Yep.
That's not that they're not interested in commitment. It's just that's the way they've chosen with their life.
And a lot of them too, I think, are wanting to just further their learning experiences.
Yeah.
There's totally nothing wrong with that. I'm not learning.
And exactly. And learning as a single person is sometimes easier because you have more freedom to go and do things and just to up and do whatever.
And you can spend all night studying and not worrying about your spouse.
Or you
laying
can
in bed
travel
waiting.
somewhere and do something. You just have that ability.
Go to a school in another country because you have that ability.
Singles being expected to actively seek a partner. Exclamation point. That's it. There's this expectation that if you are single in the church, you must look for a spouse. There's this idea like, yeah, you are expected. That's what you're doing. Again, let me set you up at so I know a brother of a brother. And it's just all these things. And there's so many, it shouldn't be an expectation. Some people, many of the singles I'd say a higher percentage are looking for a partner than those who are not.
But maybe it's because they're expected to.
It might be, but I think generally more people will get married than not. And that's okay.
Yep.
That's the dynamic, but there shouldn't be an expectation.
No.
Again, change what you're asking and not if they're dating or whatever, just ask how their life is going. What are they doing? What's God doing in their life? Anything like that.
Yep.
That leaves it open-ended for them to talk about.
Yeah.
So singles are sometimes perceived as less spiritually mature. This goes a little bit with the idea of just being immature, like becoming an adult.
Unless they're the ones that have gone out onto the mission field, like they've gone to other countries and missionary work.
Yeah. So unless they've done something specific like that, they can be seen. And even then, they sometimes get seen as not being able to contribute fully to the church because they haven't experienced what it is to be married. Or if they have been, then they're not in that anymore. That's what we're reading in one book. And they're saying that there's a tendency like church will be more likely to take a divorced pastor than one who had never been married because they felt like the divorced pastor would have at least the experience of marriage to be able to connect with the married people in the church.
Yeah, no, but I do get that because they have that perception that the experience is what gives you the maturity. So if the pastor has never been married, how is he going to be able to relate to the married couple who might be having problems in their relationship or with their kids when he's never been married or had kids? Everybody has been single at some point in their life, but if they've never been married at some point in their life, then how are they going to be able to relate to the married as a pastor, especially?
And I don't think that's unfounded in a sense, but I think a single person needs to work hard on that side of things to gain the understanding.
Yeah.
And we can gain understanding through talking with people, reading, finding like expert books. So that's not like the be all and end all, but no, it's the same thing about anything. I have never experienced autism. I do not have autism. And yet I can talk to David and ask what his experience is, which can help me to understand it better. So then I may be able to connect with, say, other kids at Taekwondo that deal with autism to understand them better.
Yeah.
So that's just an example.
Yeah.
So just saying that you don't have a experience with something, that therefore you shouldn't be considered is just, it's.
Yeah, because you can learn to understand the situation.
Yeah. Yep. You have to be purposeful.
Yeah.
That's the active part.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So in that regard, marriage was to help those who may have lustful, I guess, eyes, as the Bible puts it, I think. The idea, though, that, okay, you got to separate two things. You got love, and then you have the whole idea of that. So you can love without being married.
Yeah.
I think the basis for that spiritual maturity is in Christ and that of love. You can love without being married. You can love as a single. You can love if you're married. So I think they completely misunderstand the core idea of what Christ stood for.
Yeah.
Yeah. That Christ never got married. I think he understood both married, singles.
That's not the point. The point was love. The point that what people expect in marriage, Christ showed outside of marriage. He separated that, right? He said that when you get married, you have love and then sexual attraction. I feel like he's saying that these two things aren't codependent. What he's saying is that you can have love without the rest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So I think that spiritual basis is completely misunderstood. And I think that is one of the critical points that people have to understand when realizing that they can be single and still be anchored on Christ. To people who feel trapped, confined, or predestined to follow a specific path before they can experience love.
Good one. Yep. Good insights, David. Yeah, so we've talked about all of these stereotypes. We've talked about things that people can do to fight them. I think that one of the biggest things we can do is just be aware that we have stereotypes. And yeah, like we talked about at the beginning, how we make assumptions based on things, and we look internally and ask ourselves, why are we assuming this?
Yep.
And is that biblical?
And pastors and leaders of the church need to address these issues as well. Pastor Justin is actually going to be leading a series in 1 Corinthians based on 5, 6, and 7, where it talks about these kind of stereotypes and these human nature issues and stuff like that. And I think they're going to be a good series. And I know that one of them he's actually going to talk about marrieds and singles.
Yeah, he's going to have one on singleness. Yeah, so it's definitely church leaders need to address these things, but also we as the body of the church, singles and married, relationship status aside, need to ask ourselves, what is it that we're assuming about whatever it is we're doing, and trying to deal with the stereotypes within ourselves. And then you can broaden it and become, how can we change it in the church?
Yeah.
Because it's really we need to change the stereotypes around singleness in the church, which is part of our role, or part of our mission is to redeem singleness becomes not this negative, bad word. Instead, it's something to be celebrated.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. So that's our podcast on stereotypes. Have a good day. And see you next time.
This is us signing off. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today on the Route 77 podcast. We hope that our conversation has shed light on the stereotypes surrounding singleness and inspired you to challenge these misconceptions within your own church. As we continue to redeem and celebrate singleness, let's work together to create a supportive environment for all of our brothers and sisters in Christ. Next week, don't miss our exciting episode where we delve into the history of singleness in the church. We'll explore how perceptions of singleness have evolved over time and discuss the role that singles have played in shaping the church as we know it today. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time, may God bless you on your journey, and remember to live your single life to its fullest.